Hello everyone, welcome to Learnetude. So in today's question, we have to find antonyms or the opposite in meaning to the following word. First is professional. What's the meaning of professional? Which means engaged in a specific activity as one's main occupation rather than a pastime. For example, professional driver or singer or painter or cook. Second meaning of professional is also seen as someone who is competent, skillful, or assured. Someone who is worthy of or appropriate to a professional person. For example, my sister's cooking is quite professional. Now we know the meaning of professional, so let's explore the options A, B, C, and D and find out the opposite word of professional. First is cowardly. So cowardly is also an adjective which means lacking courage. Remember this? Courage the Cowardly Dog. This is a very famous cartoon from the 90s. An example of cowardly I would give is, my dog is cowardly around stray dogs. As an adverb, cowardly means in a way which shows someone is not at all brave and is too eager to avoid danger, difficulty, or pain. For example, Emma made a cowardly decision of dropping college. Or, instead of helping the old man, the bystanders acted in a cowardly way. So, cowardly is not connected to anything describing a main occupation or some competency or skill of a person. So, it is different in meaning to our given question word, that is professional, but it is not an antonym or the opposite. Being different doesn't mean it is opposite. Now, since we are seeking antonym of professional, so our search should be opposite in meaning. That is, we need to find a word which means or lack skill, which is incompetent in nature or gives lack of assurance. Alright, so option B is amateur or amateur. Amateur is a person who engages in a pursuit, especially a sport or something else, on an unpaid rather than a professional basis, just like a hobby. For example, David plays football as an amateur. And second meaning of amateur is also similar. It describes a person who is incompetent or inapt at a particular activity. For example, Kelly hired a bunch of amateurs for her son's birthday party decoration. As an adjective, amateur is engaging or engaged in without payment. That is non-professional. Example, the salon at the corner of the street is run by some amateur beauticians. They destroyed my hair. Or, Rohan is an amateur driver. So, amateur is quite the suitable option for now, as it is very opposite in meaning to professional. So, let's mark it as the right answer. But to be sure, let's also take a look at the option number C and D as well. Irresponsible, we have seen in our previous classes the prefix IR, which is added before a word. It means not or opposite of. So something which is opposite of responsible is irresponsible. So what is irresponsible? Irresponsible is an adjective which describes a person's attitude or action. It means not showing a proper sense of responsibility. What is responsibility? Responsibility is a noun, a duty to deal with something or taking care or control over someone, that is having a position of authority. An irresponsible person lacks reliability. He or she is careless in their duties, etc. Now, you would say that this can be the antonym of professional, as someone who is not professional can be irresponsible. Yes, you are in a way correct. We can see people who are professionals, responsible human beings. They love and care their work or job. But here we are looking straight at the skills and competency and occupational status rather than characteristics or behavioral characteristics. So option C is not the right or suitable answer to our question as an antonym. Then we have option number D, unfriendly. Again, a prefix UN, which means opposite of or not. So opposite of friendly. So what's unfriendly? Unfriendly is also an adjective which means hostile or not friendly. For example, Molly's cat is unfriendly. So it is nowhere opposite to the actual meaning of professional, and hence it's not the right answer. Second given word is attractive. Attractive is an adjective which means pleasing or appealing to the senses. For example, my cousin owns an attractive house. So now our duty is to find the word which is opposite to attractive. That is a word which means not pleasing or unappealing to the senses. First is gorgeous, a very common word. Gorgeous is an adjective which means beautiful or very attractive. So gorgeous is straight away a synonym of attractive, but we are asked to provide an antonym, that is the word which is opposite in meaning to attractive. So this is a synonym, we need an antonym. This is a wrong answer here. Option B is precarious. So precarious is an adjective which means not securely held or in position. That is dangerously likely to fall or collapse. For example, I refuse to let my daughter sit on the precarious wing. Or another meaning of this is dependent on chance or being uncertain. For example, Aman has a precarious income as a Mehndi artist. Or the war has created a precarious situation for the citizens. So precarious describes a state of instability, not appearance or pleasure or appeal, and hence it is not in connection to the sensory or aesthetic qualities of attractive. And hence, this is the wrong answer, not a suitable one. Option number C, repulsive. Repulsive is also an adjective which means arousing intense distaste or disgust. For example, someone gifted me a perfume on my birthday and it had a repulsive smell. Or it can also mean lacking friendliness or sympathy. So this word repulsive is very much the antonym or opposite in meaning to our given word attractive. So let's call it as our chosen suitable correct answer here. But also let's be sure by looking at the option number D. So option number D is virtuous. And what does virtuous mean? Virtuous is an adjective which means having or showing high moral standards. For example, Catherine was poor but she was virtuous. Or another meaning of virtuous is chaste, typically used for women. Now both attractive and virtuous are different in meanings, therefore this is not the wrong answer. However, you can call a virtuous person as an attractive person because they do have confidence and aura and they do attract and have a moral appeal. But attractive refers mainly an appeal at sensory or aesthetic level, and virtuous focuses on morality, not on appearance. A person might not be beautiful in looks but still be virtuous, and vice versa. An attractive person or a thing might not be good in nature or quality. So, virtuous is not at all the opposite in meaning or antonym of attractive. So, the correct answer is repulsive. As repulsive is the best fit and the direct opposite of attractive, repulsive directly contrasts the desirable or pleasing quality of attractive. It conveys a strong sense of being unappealing or off-putting. Alright. Next we have question number 3, spendthrift. So who's a spendthrift? Spendthrift is a noun and it is a person who spends money in an extravagant or irresponsible way. For example, Feza becomes a spendthrift as soon as she gets her salary. Now to find the opposite or the antonym, we need a word that describes someone or somebody who carefully spends money or is extremely frugal or avoids to spend money at all. In Hindi, we can call spendthrift as udau. Option number A, extravagant, is an adjective which means lacking restraint in spending money or using resources. For example, celebrities tend to have an extravagant lifestyle, or it can also mean exceeding what is reasonable or appropriate, that is excessive or elaborate. For example, the new washing machine being advertised recently seems to have some extravagant features. So extravagant is similar in meaning and describes a spendthrift. Hence, it is not the right answer as we need an opposite meaning word. Alright. Option number B is loathsome. Loathsome is an adjective which means causing hatred or disgust. that is repulsive. Example, Kashish's behavior was very loathsome at the birthday party. Now, it is not necessary that a spendthrift is a loathsome person. He or she might be lovable as well. We only know spendthrifts because of their expenditure, how they spend their money. So, loathsome has no direct connection to the financial behavior implied by spendthrift. So, option B does not fit here and therefore is not suitable. Option number C, miser. A miser is a person who hoards wealth and spends as little money as possible. For example, Kabir never declutters his house. He is a miser person. Now, this is a match to our spendthrift as an antonym. Miser is a direct opposite to spendthrift, isn't it? A spendthrift spends money unnecessarily, recklessly, while a miser person saves money. So let's mark it green or as the correct answer and the suitable answer to our question, spendthrift, right? But let's see option number D as well. D is knavish, is also an adjective which means dishonest or unscrupulous. For example, the newly hired employee at the bakery is a knavish person. A knavish person is deceitful in nature and behavior. Now, comparing and contrasting to spendthrift, spendthrift might be irresponsible with the money because of his or her overspending habits and expenses, but not necessary it be implying any deceit, betrayal, dishonesty, and fraud. So, knavish focuses on moral character or trickery, not spending habits, and therefore, knavish is not a direct or relevant opposite of spendthrift. So, concluding option C, miser, is the right and most suitable antonym to spendthrift, right? Question number 4 is segregate. Segregate, a very common word. So, what does segregate mean? Segregate is a verb which means to set apart or separate something from the rest or from each other, that is to isolate or divide. For example, the puppies were fighting a lot the other day for the toy. It was the time to segregate them and also buy their individual toys. Or another example I can give is, in order to recycle and reuse the waste, the residents are asked to keep different dustbins and segregate their household waste according to the garbage categories. So the word segregate means to separate or divide, and therefore we need now a word that implies bringing together or combining something. First, option number A is integrate. Integrate is a verb which means to combine one thing with another to form a whole. For example, urbanization or technology or fashion should be integrated with sustainable development. And second, it also can mean to bring people into equal participation in or membership of a social group or institution. For example, nowadays it is good to see that ordinary schools are integrating children with special needs in their classrooms. Thus, integrate means to combine or bring together something or a group of people, and so it is the direct opposite of our word segregate, as it involves uniting rather than separating. Let's mark it as our right answer, but to be certain we must also explore and analyze other options. Option number B is immigrate. This is surely given to confuse the students or candidates. Integrate and immigrate. They are very close in appearance and is a perfect trick to challenge the time constraint of the exam. So immigrate is a verb, a very common word nowadays, which means to come to live permanently in a foreign country. For example, a lot of youngsters are immigrating to foreign countries. Or my Japanese cousin immigrated to Australia last year. So immigrate and segregate are two entirely different words and meanings. They both have zero connection, thus immigrate is the wrong answer. Next we have option number C, emigrate. Now, immigrate and emigrate. Emigrate is a verb which means leave one's own country in order to settle permanently in another country. For example, Zoya immigrated to Canada with her husband soon after her wedding. So both immigrate and emigrate are similar in meanings, as both mean to settle abroad in a foreign country, but major difference is in immigration, it is not necessary that you leave your home country. Sometimes people go to foreign country for studies or work, and then they make plan or find opportunity elsewhere in some another country. Moreover, like immigrate, emigrate also focuses on movement across the borders and has no connection to the act of separating or combining. So it's not an opposite or antonym of our word segregate, hence it is not the right answer. Then we have option number D, emancipate. So emancipate is a verb which means set free, especially from legal, social, or political restrictions. That is, another meaning is free from slavery. An example I can give is the freedom fighters sacrificed their lives to emancipate fellow citizens from the oppressed and cruel rulers. Emancipate, in a way like segregate, involves release. However, emancipate does not directly relate to the act of separating or uniting groups or things, unlike segregate. So emancipate is not direct opposite, or you can say related or connected directly to segregate. Thus, it is not the right or appropriate or opposite antonym and our answer to our question. So the right answer is integrate only. Segregate and integrate are antonyms of one another. Alright, next is grumpy. So what does grumpy mean? Question number 5, grumpy. Grumpy is an adjective which means bad, tempered, and irritable. For example, throughout the family trip, Nimbra was grumpy. So grumpy describes a person who gets easily annoyed, who is irritable, often in a moody or surly way. Now our task is to search and choose the best opposite or antonym from the given 4 options. So what do you think a word opposite to grumpy would mean? That would mean someone who is polite, sweet, soft-spoken, happy, friendly, and good-natured, isn't it? So let's get started and take a look at A, B, C and D options. So first is a difficult to pronounce word and very not so common to see a word. So how is this pronounced? This is pronounced as cantankerous. Cantankerous is an adjective which means bad-tempered, argumentative, and uncooperative. In Hindi, we can call cantankerous as jhagdalu. For example, the police was struggling hard with the cantankerous protesters. So cantankerous is similar to grumpy, as both describe a mood or a state or behavior of irritability, crankiness, making it a synonym rather than an antonym. So cantankerous is similar in meaning, a synonym of grumpy, but not the antonym. So here is not the right answer. We need a word which is opposite. All right. Okay, so option number B is amiable. Amiable is an adjective which means having or displaying a friendly and pleasant manner. For example, my amiable mother-in-law had her 60th birthday yesterday. Or, my cat is amiable even with the stranger. So, amiable directly contrasts with grumpy. Amiable means friendly, sociable, or good-natured, whereas grumpy denotes unpleasant, irritability, or moodiness, and hence an unfriendly behavior. So let's mark amiable as our right answer for now, as it suits and fulfills our search and destination. Next, option number C is eccentric. Eccentric is an adjective which describes a person or their behavior as unconventional and slightly strange. For example, this famous Bollywood actress has an eccentric personality. Now, when a person behaves in an eccentric way, he or she might be grumpy at some or all moments. However, eccentric is not a direct opposite of grumpy, as eccentric focuses on oddity or misfit, whereas grumpy focuses on temperament. Grumpy is more a short term. For instance, I can feel grumpy on certain days or certain occasions, such as when the train arrives late, or there is a lot of crowd, or you're stuck in a long traffic jam, or when you're already late for work and it starts raining heavily, etc. So eccentric, our option number C, is not an appropriate answer compared to amiable, right? This is not a right answer. Next, we have option number D, artificial. What does artificial means? Artificial is an adjective which means made or produced by human beings rather than occurring naturally, especially as a copy of something natural. For example, nowadays women do not buy real gold jewelry. They wear artificial jewelry because of fear of theft and inflation, or an artificial diamond necklace. In other words, artificial means not genuine or made to imitate something natural. It can also denote lack of authenticity or falseness. And grumpy is more about mood or personality trait. Thus, option D, artificial, is not an antonym and not related to grumpy. Alright, so that's all for today. I hope you found this lesson helpful. See you in the next class. Bye bye.